Your life if you escape the 9 to 5. The elevator doors open at 8:03 a.m. and for a few seconds, nobody moves. Just a small group of exhausted people standing under fluorescent lights, pretending they slept enough, pretending they're fine, pretending this is temporary. You step out with them anyway. Coffee in one hand, phone in the other, soul somewhere else entirely. And without realizing it, you begin another day you will never remember. At first, your life doesn't feel sad. That's why it's dangerous. Nothing is dramatically wrong. You're functioning, paying bills, replying to messages, showing up on time. From the outside, you look responsible, stable, adult, but internally, something has gone quiet. Not depression exactly, not a breakdown. Just a slow disappearance of yourself that happens so gradually you barely notice it. Until one random morning, standing on a crowded train platform, you look around and realize everyone here looks emotionally elsewhere, like their bodies arrived before their minds did. The train comes every morning at the same time, 7:12. You start measuring your life through repetition. Same station, same cold air, same announcements echoing through concrete walls, same tired faces staring into phones like they're hiding from their own thoughts. Some mornings it rains, and somehow the rain makes everything feel even more honest. You watch reflections moving across the train windows while the city slowly wakes up around you. And a strange thought appears in your head. What if this is it? Not in a dramatic way, just quietly. What if this becomes your entire life? You try not to think about it. You tell yourself everyone feels this way in their 20s or 30s. You just need a vacation, more money, a better apartment, a relationship, a weekend off, a new routine. So you keep going. Weeks blur together. Monday becomes Friday, becomes Monday again. You begin surviving through small rewards, coffee, food delivery, online shopping, scrolling until your brain goes numb enough to sleep. And slowly, your life starts feeling less like something you're living and more like something you're recovering from. At some point, exhaustion stops feeling temporary. That's the moment that scares you. Because temporary pain still has movement inside it, this feels permanent. You start waking up already tired, not physically, existentially, like your nervous system knows exactly what the day is going to feel like before it even begins. Alarm, bathroom light, dark kitchen, cheap coffee, cold floor beneath your feet, train station, office, artificial light, small talk, silence, repeat. And the strangest part is, nobody talks about it honestly. People joke about burnout, post memes about hating work, laugh through exhaustion. But underneath the humor, you can feel something heavier, a quiet grief, like millions of people are mourning lives they never fully got to experience. One evening, you come home late. The grocery store downstairs is almost empty, just fluorescent lights humming above half-stocked shelves. You buy microwave food and stand in line behind another tired stranger still wearing an office badge around their neck. And suddenly, you notice something painful. Everybody looks emotionally far away, like they're all carrying invisible versions of themselves they abandoned years ago, and dreams they stopped mentioning, ideas they stopped believing in, versions of themselves that slowly disappeared beneath survival. You go home and eat dinner in silence with YouTube playing in the background just to make the apartment feel less empty. And somewhere around midnight, you realize you haven't felt fully present in your own life for a very long time. That realization follows you everywhere, into elevators, into meetings, into showers, onto trains, especially onto trains. You begin staring out windows more, watching entire lives pass outside the glass while you sit there wondering when yours started feeling so distant. You remember younger versions of yourself, the one who stayed awake excited about ideas, the one who thought adulthood would feel meaningful, the one who believed freedom was inevitable. Now freedom feels abstract, like something other people accidentally figured out. And maybe the hardest part is this: nothing looks broken enough to leave. You're not starving, you're not homeless, you're not in immediate danger, which makes your pain harder to justify. So you stay, Because leaving something that slowly kills you is much harder than leaving something that explodes. Months pass, maybe years. The scary part is you genuinely stop counting. Routine removes time from your life without asking permission. That's why people wake up at 40 wondering what happened to them. Nothing happened dramatically. That's the tragedy. It happened quietly, one exhausted morning at a time. Then one Tuesday afternoon, something inside you shifts. Not dramatically, no music, no cinematic breakthrough. You're sitting at your desk pretending to work while your brain feels miles away. Someone nearby is talking about quarterly numbers. Another person laughs too loudly. Your screen glows in front of you while messages pile up. And suddenly, you feel this overwhelming awareness of your own existence, like you woke up inside your life for the first time in years. You look around the office and think, if I stay here long enough, this becomes who I am. Not your job, you. That thought terrifies you more than failure ever did, because failure still implies movement. This feels like emotional erosion, slow enough to normalize, fast enough to destroy entire decades. You don't quit the next day. That's fantasy. Real change begins much quieter than people think. It begins with discomfort. You start waking up earlier, not because you're motivated, because you can't keep abandoning yourself like this. The city is still dark when you sit alone in your kitchen drinking coffee beside the laptop glow. At first, nothing happens. You just sit there tired, confused, staring at blank documents, old notes, half-finished ideas, pieces of yourself you forgot existed. And honestly, most mornings feel pointless. Nobody tells you how embarrassing it feels to start over privately, especially when everyone else seems emotionally settled. You spend hours doubting yourself, questioning whether you're being unrealistic, questioning whether adulthood is simply supposed to feel empty. Sometimes you almost convince yourself to stop trying altogether. And then something small happens. Very small. You finish something. A page, an idea, a project, a skill you've been avoiding. Nobody notices, but internally, something flickers. For the first time in years, you feel slightly connected to yourself again. The change is almost invisible at first. You begin walking more at night. Long, quiet walks through streets glowing under orange streetlights. Headphones on, hands cold, thoughts finally loud enough to hear. You stop rushing home immediately after work, because honestly, you don't want to return to an apartment that only reminds you how disconnected you've become. So you wander. Train stations, convenience stores, empty cafes before closing time. You begin observing people differently, especially tired people. Because now you recognize the expression immediately, that specific look of emotional postponement. Like someone keeps telling themselves, just survive a little longer. And somewhere during those late walks, you realize nobody is coming to rescue you from your own life. Not your boss, not your friends, not motivation, not some future version of yourself. Nobody is arriving to suddenly make you feel alive again. And weirdly, that realization becomes liberating. Because if nobody is saving you, then maybe you finally stop waiting. Your relationships begin changing, quietly. Some friends stop understanding you, not because they're bad people. You've just started valuing different things. You no longer want every weekend to disappear inside noise and distraction. You stop romanticizing burnout. You stop laughing at your own suffering just to make it socially acceptable. And slowly, certain conversations begin exhausting you. The endless complaining with no intention to change. The emotional numbness disguised as maturity. The people who mock hope because they're terrified of disappointment. You still care about them. But internally, you feel yourself drifting. Loneliness enters your life differently during this period. Not cinematic loneliness, not dramatic isolation. Adult loneliness, the kind that happens when you're becoming emotionally unfamiliar to your old environment. You spend more evenings alone, more mornings in silence, more time sitting with thoughts you spent years avoiding. And honestly, some nights feel terrible. There are moments you genuinely wonder if stability would have been easier, because freedom is uncomfortable before it becomes beautiful. Nobody warns you about that part. There's a specific kind of sadness that appears when your old life no longer fits you, but your new life hasn't fully formed yet. You exist in between versions of yourself, and that space feels incredibly fragile. Some mornings you relapse emotionally. You oversleep, skip routines, waste hours scrolling. Feel the old numbness returning. And the worst part? It still feels familiar, comfortable even, because your nervous system became addicted to distraction years ago. But slowly, discipline begins replacing motivation. Not the fake internet version, real discipline, quiet discipline, the kind nobody applauds. Getting up while tired, continuing while uncertain, working without immediate reward, learning how to trust small progress. You stop waiting to feel inspired because you realize something painful. Most people lose their lives waiting for emotions that never arrive. Months pass, maybe a year. The external changes are still small. Your apartment is still modest. You still drink cheap coffee. You still have moments of doubt. But internally, something is reorganizing itself. You begin noticing details again. Morning sunlight on walls, rain against train windows, music sounding emotional instead of just distracting. The feeling of finishing difficult things quietly. Presence starts returning to your life in fragments. And honestly, it almost makes you emotional sometimes, because you've forgotten life could feel this vivid. One morning, you're sitting on the train watching exhausted commuters stare blankly into their screens. And suddenly, you recognize your old expression in them. That same emotional absence, that same quiet surrender. And for a second, you feel grief, not superiority, grief. Because you know how easy it is to disappear inside routine without noticing it happen. Some people never realize they're abandoning themselves until years disappear. You also realize that money was never the only thing draining you. It was disconnection. Disconnection from your time, from your curiosity, from your inner world. You weren't just tired from working. You were tired from being emotionally absent from your own existence for years. The strange thing about rebuilding your life is that almost nobody sees the hardest parts. Nobody sees you staring at ceilings at 2 a.m. wondering if you ruined everything. Nobody sees the fear, the uncertainty, the constant internal negotiation between comfort and freedom. People only notice visible outcomes, but the real transformation happens invisibly, in silence, inside ordinary moments nobody films. And eventually, you stop fantasizing about becoming rich. That fantasy fades surprisingly quickly. What you actually want is much simpler. You want mornings that don't feel emotionally violent. You want work that doesn't disconnect you from yourself. You want to feel awake inside your own life again. That's it. And somehow, that becomes enough. One rainy evening, you walk through the city after finishing work on something deeply personal. No celebration, no audience, no guarantee it'll succeed. The streets are wet. Cars pass slowly through reflections of neon lights. Somewhere nearby, a train rattles through the darkness, and for the first time in years, you notice you're not rushing anymore. Not mentally, not emotionally. You're just there, present, alive enough to actually feel the cold air against your skin. And the moment feels strangely unfamiliar. Because peace used to feel impossible for you. You realize healing isn't dramatic either. It's subtle. You start laughing more naturally, sleeping slightly better, feeling less desperate to escape every moment of silence. Your nervous system softens slowly, quietly, like your body is finally beginning to trust your life again. The train still arrives every morning at 7:12. You still see tired faces standing beneath fluorescent station lights. Some of those people will remain there for decades. Some will convince themselves they're fine until emotional numbness becomes their personality. And some of them are secretly beginning to wake up, quietly, painfully, one small decision at a time, just like you did. And years later, if someone asked when your life actually changed, you probably wouldn't know how to answer, because there was no cinematic breakthrough, no perfect moment, no clean ending, just thousands of invisible choices repeated long enough that eventually You became someone else. Someone who no longer sat in train windows wondering when life would finally begin. Someone who understood that freedom was never about escaping work entirely. It was about escaping the version of yourself that stopped feeling alive. And maybe that's why this version of your life feels so strange now. Not because it became perfect, but because for the first time in a very long time, your days actually feel like they belong to you. Even the difficult ones, even the lonely ones, even the uncertain ones. And some nights, walking home beneath city lights, with tired hands and an unfinished future, you still feel afraid. But the fear feels different now. Before, you were afraid of failing. Now, you're afraid of falling asleep inside your own life again.